everyone, Elsie Jensen here. Tonight we are going to finish up making our twice baked potatoes and our pulled pork sliders, a coleslaw, and we also have a sourdough about to go into the oven. So we're going to do our sourdough first since we want to bake it. I had it in the fridge since last night. So we're going to put it out on our parchment paper here. And we're going to do a nice score on it. Right through the middle. And then I might do a nice little one with some fancy little design. And then I have for our oven, I have my oven preheated to 500 and I had my Dutch oven in there for the last hour heating up. So it'll be really hot, but I'm gonna pull it out so I can pop my bread and my sourdough in there. And that's the key, is you gotta heat up your Dutch oven for about an hour at a really high temperature. And we're gonna cook this. I'm gonna just slide this over here and carefully put my bread in my Dutch oven. And we're gonna put it back with the lid back in the oven. And we're gonna cook it. Woo, that just slipped. That's okay. Let's see how it's in there perfectly. We're gonna put the lid back on. This is gonna trap in the heat and the moisture and kind of make it like an old school oven. And we'll pop it back in here and we're gonna let this bake for about 25-30 minutes, and we'll take off the lid and finish it for about 15 minutes afterwards. So I have my oven on 500 and I'll put my timer for 25 minutes. And that's when we get to take the lid off and bring the temperature down and finish that up. Okay, now we're gonna do our twice baked potatoes. So earlier we prepped our potatoes and put them in the oven. And now, take these out. I know that they're ready because if you give them a nice squeeze, they kind of push in. And these are gonna be for our twice baked potatoes. So if you've never had a twice baked potato, you essentially take a baked potato, you'll open it up, scoop out the insides, mix it with sour cream, butter, cheese, some green onions, and salt, and then you stuff it back in, cover it with some cheese, and you bake it for like 5 more minutes. So we're gonna start with our first our first potato. They're gonna be hot, so what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna pick it up, rotate it, and I'm gonna hold it with a pot holder, and then I am going to kind of cut an opening out, peel off this top skin, we're not gonna need it, and then I'm just gonna scoop out the insides of our baked potato. And this is what we're gonna use to make our, essentially a cheesy sour cream mash. And then we'll re-stuff our potatoes and bake them. These are, my kids absolutely love these, but they are definitely like one more step than a regular potato. So I've got my first one down. And again, I recommend holding a potato in a pot holder, just because, again, I just took these out of the oven, so they're about 350 degrees. Perfect. And what we're gonna do is we're just gonna cut that top circle off, like you're making a canoe. Peel that top skin away, and scoop out the inside. And the trick is you wanna make sure you've baked your potatoes long enough. I had these in the oven for about 2 hours at 350 degrees. They were wrapped in aluminum foil. I always recommend wrapping your potatoes in aluminum foil because it helps keep their moisture in. Otherwise, your potato will be dry.
You got a question, what's the meal you're cooking right now?
Tonight, we are making twice baked potatoes. We did a butt roast in our Instapot, and we're gonna do pulled pork sliders and make a coleslaw. And we just threw in a sourdough loaf that we've been working on for the last 2 days. Nice. But they're just like, I say, a more bougie baked potato or loaded baked potato because you mix it all up and then you put it in the oven and it just melts everything together. And it's just, I think, better than a loaded baked potato. It has pretty much all the same ingredients, but even better. And they're like nice looking. You know, you plate them and they look all nice. These are something we had a lot growing up, but I don't see them very often now, like at restaurants or anything like that. But I remember as a kid, this was when my mom was like, oh, we're gonna make twice baked potatoes. We all loved it. And just scoop it out like you're making little potato boats. And it's okay if you like accidentally tear your potato. It's fine. It's not runny when you restuff them, so it won't go everywhere. And when you do this, you want to use bigger potatoes, because if you use a small potato, it's really hard to scrape out the insides. And just make a little oval here and peel off that top layer of skin. Scrape. This one looks like a root in it, so I'll put that out there. Sometimes you get a little black spot in your potato. That's just where you have either a root or a little, like a cut. But you can just throw those to the side. They're not as good. Perfect. Now, in here, we've got our potatoes. We're gonna add in a half a stick of butter. I'm using butter that's been out on my counter, so it's soft. This works better than cold butter because it will melt faster and more evenly, I think. Otherwise, you'll get like a lump of cold butter. So I'm gonna get a bigger spoon so I can mash this with. And we're gonna mix in the butter. And then we will also add some sour cream. So pretty much everything that you think of in a loaded baked potato, I guess besides bacon, you could always add bacon, but is gonna be in here. So I'm gonna do, it's probably about a half a cup of sour cream. I'm just using up the rest of my sour cream, but you want enough to really get a nice creamy mixture. And we're gonna put a handful of shredded cheddar cheese in here. This would be about a half a cup. I would think we're gonna put a little bit more on the top for it, so it has a nice melted cheese layer. And then we're gonna use some green onions. I'm gonna just chop off the tips of them and just do a really quick slice down. You wanna make sure you cut them thin. Chives will also work great for this because you just really want a very mild green flavor. So I'm not gonna use the very tips of mine because that has a more potent green flavor or onion flavor. So we've got butter, sour cream, cheese, and green onions. Now I'm going to put in a little bit of garlic salt. And it's probably gonna be about like half a tablespoon. And you're just gonna mash it up and mix it together until all of them it's well mixed. So think about it having it like a very herb, cheesy mashed potatoes that we're gonna restuff our potato boats over here with. And you could use a hand mixer if you wanted to. I find it mixes up just fine with a spoon.
You got a comment that it makes her nervous when you cut like that. She's just afraid you're gonna cut yourself. Like she has cut herself before.
Oh, I have cut myself before, but I've done it so many times now. I really, in the very beginning, I cut myself, or if I'm being careless and I'm rushing and I'm not paying attention. But I have scar on here when I was in like 8th grade, I cut my finger, and then I have one right here where I cut my finger cooking. But those were all when I was in high school or younger, so I've learned. Okay, I'm just gonna take a quick taste, make sure they have enough salt. Perfect. And the best part about this is it's really easy. I'll put this right over here. You're just gonna come back over to your potato boats and you're gonna refill them. They won't be hot now because they've been unstuffed. and you're just gonna scoop in, and it's gonna be overflowing because it always makes more because we've added some more ingredients. So you're gonna overflow each boat just like this. Perfect. And just scoop it, fill it up. This guy next is the big one. But you'll want to fill them up with a good flavor. Then we're going to sprinkle them over with some more cheese. So we have some melted cheese topped to them. And then we'll pop them back in our oven. So my oven's still set at 350. I never turned it off because we're going to do, it's a second bake, hence twice bake. And that's just going to melt all the cheeses that are inside it and melt the layer and blend all the flavors together. But this is always a favorite. And it's just a way to change up a baked potato. Makes it a little bit more bougie. There we go. And now I've got to scrape and get all of this last one from the last one. I once did twice baked potatoes for Thanksgiving one year, and I'm the youngest of 10, and we have a very large Thanksgiving party. So I think I made 40 twice baked potatoes. Now that took a hot minute to make. But they were delicious. And it's one of those things where you could have them stuffed and cover your cheese and just wait to bake them until it's time. So you could always prep it a couple hours ahead. And put this all over here. Delicious. Give my hands a quick wash. And then all we're gonna do is sprinkle a little bit more cheese over the top of each one. Push them all in here. Just a little bit of cheese on the top. You could also use sliced cheese if you had it, like a sliced cheddar. Don't put American on it. I'm anti-American cheese. There we go. Perfect. And I will pop these in the oven in just a few minutes. Since we have a little bit of prep time to do, I'm gonna wait to pop them in until closer to dinner. And clean up. And now we are going to work on our coleslaw, which we're just gonna do a very basic coleslaw. So I'm gonna start with my sauce for the dressing for the coleslaw.
Asked if there's gonna be any bacon on there.
No bacon on there, but you can add it. We had loaded baked potato soup for lunch today, so no bacon on there, but you could definitely add bacon, especially if you're already cooking it up for something. Okay, we're gonna start with our dressing for our coleslaw. Let me go get a spoon. You're gonna need about, let's see, I'm looking at my cabbage, and I would say about a half a cup of mayo.
Got a question. Do you post the recipes?
I've been asked about that, so we are working on doing recipe cards, and we will be posting them. We just started doing this, and so anybody gives me feedback, I take it, and that's our next thing is to work on some recipe cards, but we have them in our videos. We do post our videos, so you can always go through, and I try to label all the ingredients as I'm going. So we have a half a cup of mayo, and don't want to lose that guy. Then we're gonna add in some fresh lemon juice. So I've got my lemon right here. I'm gonna try to pick out some seeds right now before I squeeze it. And I'm gonna give it a good squeeze. I like to squeeze upwards and let it drain down my hand just so I can get some of those seeds at first. They'll pop out. And then I'm not afraid. I get my whole fingers in there and really try to squeeze up. And there were still more lemon seeds in there. There we go. So I'm just gonna pick those out real quick because we don't want those in our thing. And then I'm gonna put in about a tablespoon of vinegar. I'm gonna grab my vinegar right over here. I put it away on accident. Of apple cider. I like apple cider, but you could use white vinegar as well. I think apple cider isn't quite as sharp. And I have found that the cap of my vinegar is about a teaspoon. So I'm gonna put in 1, 2, 3. And then a little bit of garlic salt. I always love to use garlic salt. And this is going to be the base of our coleslaw. You gotta add a little bit of sugar because you want just a little bit of sweetness when you add vinegar to kind of cut it. So let me grab my little sugar dish. I'm gonna give it a quick stir. You're gonna use about, some people like their coleslaw really sweet. I prefer mine more savory than sweet. So I use a little bit less sugar. I'm gonna use about a tablespoon of sugar, but a lot of people will use closer to 1/4 of a cup. So I'm just gonna use about a tablespoon of sugar, but that's because I don't like my my coleslaw to be super sweet. I'm more of a savory girl. I'm gonna give it a good stir, and then we're gonna chop up our vegetables, and that's what we'll toss it in for our slaw. I think slaw pairs really nicely with the pulled pork sliders. We also have some pickled onions, which we're gonna put on them. Okay, so for our slaw, we are just going to be essentially have a cabbage, half a cabbage here, and we'll shred a carrot in just a second. But we're just gonna do a cabbage here. And you could also use red cabbage if you wanted. We just had this left over from a soup we made.
I got asked if I cook as well. No, I do not.
He does not cook. He has cooked me food before. He served me raw chicken once. It was cooked on the outside, but it was still raw. No, I really enjoy cooking, and I just end up doing most of the cooking. And when I want a break, we'll either go out to eat or pick up something. But it's something I really enjoy, and I've been doing since I was like in middle school. So I'm gonna give this a quick, you wanna make sure you chop up it very finely because you don't wanna have huge leaves of lettuce, or not lettuce, cabbage. So do chop, chop, chop. And I just kind of push over. I'm using my hand on top, just giving it more force. It allows me to chop it more thoroughly, and it's a bit safer. There we go. So I've got my cabbage about all chopped up where I want it. And I'm gonna add this to our dressing. Perfect. And before I shred our carrot, I'm gonna pop our twice baked potatoes in the oven right here. I'm gonna have them, I have 2 ovens. I have this one, and then I have my wall oven over there. I like my wall oven better, but it's being used for the sourdough right now. Okay, and now we're gonna shred up a carrot. I'm gonna peel it first because the outer skin of carrots just don't taste very good. So just a quick peel and chop off that tip. But you can totally use, you can buy actual like slaw mix, and then you could just make your own dressing. You have that in there. And I'm just gonna do a quick shred with my grater here. And you can't ever really chop carrots up fine enough for slaw, so just use your grater to shred them. That way they'll be tender. And you can see 1 carrot gives a lot of color for it. Perfect. My husband hates using the grater. He's always like, aren't you gonna slip and cut yourself? And I'm like, no. The trick is you just don't hold it close, and when you get towards the end, you just stop. Perfect. Give it a good shake. And I'm gonna get tongs, and I'm gonna toss my salad in the dressing. And we can sit and we'll have our coleslaw waiting for us. But it will add a nice coolness, and I think there are some people who love to put, they make their sliders or their pulled pork sandwiches and they put like a big serving of coleslaw on it. You could do that. I prefer the pickled onions we made earlier. Okay, so now we've got our slaw waiting. These are our pickled onions from earlier. We did just red onions, and then we just pickled them in some vinegar, sugar, and salt, and a little bit of water. Now, for the start of the show, let me clear off this. We are gotta make our pulled pork. So I'm here, I had in my Instapot. We seasoned it earlier, nice and hot. Now we're gonna take it out and we gotta just shred it up. So, this here, the bowl is really hot, the top is not. And again, I'm also really like, heat doesn't bother me. So if you're more sensitive, just wear oven mitts. We seasoned this up earlier with some paprika, oregano, garlic, salt, pepper, and we cooked it in with some vegetable bouillon and some smoky chipotle bouillon. We also used a little bit of vinegar and Worcestershire to add some acidity to it, which will help make it nice and tender. And now we are going to chop it off. But I'm first going to remove, if you ever cook with a picnic roast or a pork bust, there's just a top sleeve of fat. You want to take that off because it's not good. You don't want to eat it. It's very gelatinous and it's not good fat, I'll tell you. So I'm just going to take that off and I'll throw it in there with those juices. And then I'm just going to go through. It's very hot, but it should be very tender. I had it cooking on my high pressure setting for 4 hours, but we only did it for 2. I just never change it. So for 2 hours on high pressure, and you can just see how tender this is as we chop through it. Perfect. And just kind of go through that way. When we load it up on our sliders, you won't have any big chunks or pieces. But you just see how tender it is, and it's well seasoned, but of course we'll add just a little bit of barbecue sauce. My favorite, I will say our family's favorite, we love Sweet Baby Ray's, the honey or the brown sugar one. So that's the barbecue sauce we're using. But of course you could use any one that you like. Perfect. Just make sure I got any big chunks. There we go. And now what I'm gonna do is I've got my Sweet Baby Ray's hickory brown sugar. This is my favorite. I think the original is a little too spicy. This one has the perfect amount of, I think, zing and sweetness. So I'm just giving it a good coating. And I'll use my tongs and just do a quick toss with it. Because we already seasoned the meat well while it was roasting. This is just to add a little bit more flavor towards the end. Now, this is not as good as a smoked, pork butt. You can't beat that. But in the winter, when you don't want to stand outside, but you kind of want a quick meal, this is where it's at. Okay, I'm gonna pull out, let me get this out of the way. I'm gonna check my potatoes here and see how they are. I'll pull them up so you guys can see it. I'm hoping that wrong hand, that the cheese is melted. Ooh, just about. I'll leave them in there for 1 more minute while we prep, but look, they're almost completely melted and perfect. Just want a little bit more melt, maybe a minute or 2. So I'm gonna prep our plate and show you how we'll serve them, or serve our dinner tonight. Here, we'll get this out. Let me get a paper towel real quick. So I like to serve my you can use slider buns. I love brioche rolls. I think the sweet bun, and they're very tender, works well. We have slider ones, or rolls that we're gonna use as sliders, but you can actually get bigger brioche buns at the store. But I think they pair lovely with pulled pork. They're just a sweeter, more delicate, like bun roll. Let me get my bread knife over here. In case you don't know what a bread knife is, this is a bread knife. It has serrated edges for cutting, just like, it's like for like a saw. Think about a saw for bread. That's essentially what it is. So we've got our pulled pork, or we're gonna take our pulled pork and we're gonna load it up on here.
You got a question, what cut of pork is it?
This is a pork butt, or picnic roast. So it's just that big thing that you get from the store. That's it's like the cheapest cut you can get. Put a little dollop on, and then we're gonna use some pickled onions. This is gonna add a little bit of tang. They're like, we pickled them with like sugar and vinegar and whatnot, but it's gonna add a nice zip to the pulled pork. Then we'll have a nice serving of coleslaw, because I just think whenever you have pulled pork, you gotta have coleslaw. And then let's pull out those potatoes.
Yes, everybody eats the pickled onions. It just pairs really nicely with this meal. So everyone in the family likes those.
I find if you just put it on there and you don't tell them about it, they'll try it, and most of the time they don't say anything about it. Occasionally you'll get a kid who might think, but most of the time they just eat it without knowing. So we're gonna put this guy right on here, and this is what we're having for dinner tonight. We've got a twice baked potato with some coleslaw and our pulled pork slider with the pickled red onions. And the acidity of the onions, I know you might be like, oh, I'm not gonna put them on. Try it first. You will love it. My husband was against it in the beginning, and he tried it and he loved it. So definitely try it. Before I let you go, I'll let you see the sourdough bread, but don't forget to like and subscribe. I try to do live cooking shows every single day for you guys. Comment, post, send me a message if you want to see a certain recipe. We've got 25 seconds left, so it's time for me to take the top off. But you guys can see, oh, look at that beautiful puff up here. You see how it really expanded nicely? Beautiful. So we're gonna finish this off. I'm gonna lower my heat down to 450, and this will bake for another 20 minutes, essentially until we are, it's like the right color, so like a dark golden brown. Okay, let me bake it. But again, thank you guys for joining us tonight. We try to do live streams every day. Lots of different recipes for you guys. Don't forget to like and subscribe.